Hello, what is up? You would not believe. This is the third time I'm filming this video, so excuse me if I am a little bit frustrated. The first time I filmed it, the video was out of focus, so that was fantastic. The second time I filmed it, everything seemed fine, and then I listened to the audio, and it had blown out. Moving on. Due to popular demand, I am bringing back one of my most popular, if not my most popular, series on my channel. It's a writing tip series, and that series is Writing Cliches to Avoid.
It's alive!
People have been asking me for a little while to bring back Writing Cliches to Avoid and to start off with horror. So that's exactly what I'm doing. It's a good follow-on from my last one, actually. What was gonna be my last Writing Cliches to Avoid video was Mystery Thriller. I recommend watching that one after watching this video because a lot of the cliches in that one will actually match up with the horror genre as well. So this video is basically where I give you a list of some of the cliches that are most being talked about. The genre today is horror, so keep in mind these aren't just my opinions. These are what your audience is actually saying. People who read horror are saying that these things have been overused. So there's no need to get defensive. If any of these sound familiar with your writing, all that means is that you have to make sure that if you feel like you do need to put these things in your story, just make sure you're approaching it more creatively. That's all. Are you following me on Instagram yet? Well, you should be. You're missing content like this. Wow, that's cool. So the first cliche is haunted houses, and this is actually a cliche for book covers as well, not just plot. When you go to the library or the bookstore and you go to the horror section, chances are you're going to see like 20 books that have a creepy looking house on the cover. It's usually nighttime, sometimes raining, you might even see a lightning strike in there. The creepy house on the book cover is a cliche in itself, so on the flip side of that you have the haunted house plot. The haunted house that was built on an ancient burial ground, or the haunted house that used to be home to a mad doctor. Usually during the Victorian era, which is weird. It's almost always during the Victorian era. When did we decide that Victorian era ghosts are more spooky? The story usually goes the same way though. It's a peppy family moving into the new house. They've just moved from out of town. Dad's got a new job in that town and they got the house at a steal. It's a real bargain. But why look into the history of the house and maybe try to find out why it's so cheap when you can just move in and ignore that completely? It'll start off light with some, lights turning on and off, some doors slamming, and then by day 7, they're usually seeing blood dripping from the walls or some shit like that. The rest of the family usually wants to get out, but the dad says no, because he has a lot of money in this house, and if they leave, they'll lose everything, and that is worth risking your life. Moving on from that, the next cliche is almost a genre in itself, and that's dystopian zombie books. Look, I get it. I'm a writer as well, so I've wanted to write a dystopian zombie at some point. I'm not sure you can say you are a writer unless you've planned to start writing a zombie story.
It's about zombies.
Zombies?
And it's a relationship story, and there's a great love story in there that could be made into a movie, I think.
The love story's between
The
whom?
zombie and Carol.
The zombie and the Carol is not a zombie?
No,
she's a regular person.
The rich girl.
But look, the jury's in. Zombies had a good run. It had a good, decade. It's done. People have zombie fatigue. It's been worn out in movies, television, video games, 100%. And yes, books as well. But not music for some reason. Whatever happened to Rob Zombie? Where is Rob Zombie? And while we're at it, can I also ask us to close the door on creepy clowns as well? Because for fuck's sake, they've been done to death. I guarantee you there is no way that you can write a creepy clown that has not already been done 10 times. I'm sick of it. They had a good run. But sadly, we will be closing the door now on zombies and clowns. Next up is the accidental ritual. This is what kicks the whole horror plot into motion, and it's usually accidentally doing a ritual. Whoopsie daisy, we did a satanic ritual. Usually with a Ouija board, or they'll find a creepy book in the basement or the attic. And I'm not sure what the plan is here, because when they do this, it's like, best case scenario really is that they're all sitting around in the dark looking like a bunch of fucking idiots. Worst case scenario, they actually summon a demon, which is what happens, spoiler alert, and they all die. With the Ouija board, it's usually to speak to a dead relative, like dead parent, sibling, child, and they think they're talking to their dead relative, and it's fantastic. And then they find out it's actually something more sinister, something more malicious. After that, we have the phone/car not working. Now look, I get it. This actually seems like one of the most practical things on this list. If the car and the phone are working, then they've got an easy call for help, an easy escape. But having the phone lose reception now just because they went a couple of miles out of town. It's just not realistic. It's 2018. Satellites are a lot better now. And the car that inexplicably just breaks down when they're taking a shortcut through the woods. Yeah, shit, what a surprise. I wonder where this is going. So look, I get it. You have to cut off their means of communication and transport. That makes sense. Just like I said before, we need to look for ways to do it more creatively. That's all. So the next one kind of has 3 points, and that's the friends not believing the protagonist, inept police officers, and the main group being surprised when the police don't believe their crazy story. So for the first one, the friends not believing the protagonist. Through the story up until this point, there has been no indication whatsoever that the rest of the friends see the main character as a drama queen or an untrustworthy person. And yet when that person bursts into the room in a complete state of panic, everyone's always just like, whoa, chill out, bro. There's almost no reason to believe that they would be making this up, and yet when they run into the room saying that someone outside tried to kill them, everyone's just like, you've had like 2 beers, dude. I'm sure it was just the wind. Or you have the inept police officers. It's right near the end of the story, and bingo bango, they see a police officer. Awesome. Salvation has come. And yet think about it. Whenever you see this happen in a movie or a TV show or something like that, you know what's about to happen. We all do. The panicked person, usually covered in blood, is going to be explaining what has happened to the police officer who, for whatever reason, seems to not really give much of a shit. And then while this is happening, the killer comes up behind them and dead. Or this one I think is the one that bothers me the most, and that is when something really supernatural and crazy happens. And the group that this happens to, usually like a group of teenagers been having some drinks, they're skeptics at the start of the story, right? Like, usually all but one of them don't believe in ghosts or anything like that, and yet they get haunted or whatever. Maybe a couple of them died. And they go to the police with this insane story, and when the police don't believe them, they're all like, what the fuck, bro? And like, I get it, they've just been through a traumatic experience. Sure. But they're like, the police officers are fucking idiots, man. It's like, really? Really though? Like, would you have believed this had they said this to you the day before? No. And you know that. Look, I can't say how I would react in that situation after going through a traumatic event, but I'm pretty sure if something immensely supernatural happened to me and I went to the police, which I probably would, sure, I just don't think I would be all that surprised if they were skeptical. I don't think I would see them as idiots. Next up is the overly cocky friend / military trained. Put simply, it's just the meathead jock who, for whatever reason, thinks that they can go hand to hand with the big serial killer who happens to be carrying a machete or an axe or something, and they go at them with like a baseball bat or a hockey stick or whatever sport it is that they do. And it looks like they're putting up a good fight and then dead. Or you have the new person to the group who's brought along as the new boyfriend of one of the characters or something like that. And they're pretty shy and reserved and seem to be the most normal of the bunch through most of the story. And then at the most convenient time, you find out that they're actually a doctor or they've got military training. Wow, that's convenient. Mirrors. If there's a mirror in a horror story, something freaky is going to happen. And it's almost always going to be their reflection becoming distorted or not following along with their movements. The next cliche, this is the one that actually pisses me off. I hate seeing this in movies and books and television. All of the other cliches I can forgive on this list if you approach it creatively. With this one, I have to ask that you leave it the fuck out. I'm sick of seeing this. That is the creepy kid with the imaginary friend.
I'm sick of it.
I hate how shamelessly so much media has done this trope. The kid with the imaginary friend cliche, I'm sick of it. It's been done. There is no other way to do this trope that would not tick me off. And what is it about kids that make them more susceptible to like demons and ghosts? I get it, they're like, pretty gullible. Children are generally easy to manipulate, but is that it? Is that the only reason? Next up is the unstoppable juggernaut. We're talking about your Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Leatherface, that weird wax thing from House of Wax. The humongous serial killer with an indistinguishable face. So usually wearing a mask or they'll have some kind of deformity. And they're always fucking jacked, bro. They're pretty much always mute because creepy. And I've noticed that almost all of them have some form of mobility issues. Like, you can't really imagine them like picking up a key and unlocking a door or climbing a ladder or riding public transportation. Like, if you were the person being stalked by this serial killer, could you not just, like, fly to the other side of the country or a different country entirely? I can't really imagine, like, Jason Voorhees taking the bus or getting a passport photo and traveling overseas to chase you down. Next cliche kind of goes hand in hand with the haunted house. If I'm reading about a creepy house and they describe it as being on the edge of a forest, I know that there is going to be a forest chase. The forest chase isn't even exclusive to horror, it's done in pretty much every action story. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to write one myself, it seems like fun. But the hard part is obviously going to be doing it in a way that is different, which is a bit hard to do when you're just writing about people being chased through some trees. Last but not least is the ambiguous ending, the ending that leaves the door open. This is another cliche I completely get. I think one of the most effective ways to make a horror story feel like a good horror story is to leave the reader with a lingering sense of like doubt or suspense or something of that nature, and having the question, is this serial killer or monster really dead, is the best way to do that. But with that said, it is still a cliche. They'll either be shot or stabbed or blown up is a good one because where's the body? Who knows? But either the body will be gone or they'll be looking at the body, but they'll turn away for a moment, usually when the police rock up, turn back, gone. They've fucked off. They're like hiding behind the table. They've smoke bombed out of there. But yeah, that's about it. That's all the cliches I have for you today. This focused more on the supernatural horror, although another whole video could be done for psychological horror. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the cliches I've mentioned. If there's any I've missed, or maybe you want me to do another genre on writing cliches to avoid, just let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Catch ya.